Did Veganuary end your goal of going and staying vegan? You need some inspiration. Stephanie Getschy's story will get you back on the vegan train. Veganism saved her life. That's next on the PETA Podcast with Emil Guillermo. Welcome to the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo, your host for this inside look at animal rights, brought to you by PETA, the largest animal rights organization in the world. On today's episode, Stephanie Getschy thought being vegetarian was enough, but her diet was loaded with fat. She was pre-diabetic, and in time she had full type 2 diabetes. She had to go a step further than even veganism. She limited her fat intake. In 6 months, she came back from obesity and reclaimed her life. Here's her story on the PETA Podcast. Stephanie, thank you for being here on the PETA Podcast. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
This is a real journey that we're going to be talking about for you. Describe the way you were when you were alarmed and when you were diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. How were you feeling about yourself? What were you eating? Were you vegetarian even?
I was a vegetarian. I would say my self-confidence, my self-worth was probably pretty low at that time because I was obese. I was 264 pounds on a 5'8" frame and really sedentary.
264 pounds? You're not the person I'm seeing now. 264 pounds and 5'8"?
Yeah. I'm a lot less than that now. I'm 150 today. So it's a complete change.
Well, wait, but 264 pounds and you were vegetarian?
Yeah. Uh-huh. I was really sedentary. I spent most of my evenings on the couch playing video games or in electronics or reading or something sedentary like that. I didn't have an exercise routine. I didn't value that at that time.
So what about the food part? Being vegetarian, how could it be that you were as heavy as you were?
High fat. There is a ton of fat in dairy, in eggs, in animal fat, and a ton of cholesterol. And my blood work showed that extremely. I may have had a loaded gun, like Dr. Bernard from the Physicians Committee says. I may have had a loaded gun in my genetics. I have all of those things on both sides of my family. So I was already sort of walking into that with my family right alongside of them. So, and then Dr. Esselstyn says the fat you eat is the fat you wear. I think McDougall said that too. These are doctors that I trust and follow now. Was so grateful to find their work through this journey. So it was really high processed foods. So super high in fat. If I maintain a low fat diet these days, it's 20 to 30 grams of total fat a day. One avocado is 22 grams of fat. It's knowing the right nutrition, I think. Yeah, genetics plus being sedentary plus a really high fat diet just did me wrong. I didn't have the right genetic makeup to sort of filter all the fat out of my body. Like, I don't know anybody that does. But yeah, the high fat processed foods really shot my A1C from a 7 when I was pre-diabetic. And then over the course of 8 years, it went up to an 11, which is extremely high.
And all this time you're working at PETA, correct?
Well, when I was vegetarian, and got the pre-diabetic diagnosis, I went vegan. So my family went vegan. And we ditched dairy, we ditched eggs. We were eating processed foods, but they were vegan. And then that's the period I'm working at PETA while I'm vegan. It was 2017. I was hired at PETA.
At PETA, they had a plant-based course on healthy eating. And how did that change your life?
That is sort of what saved my life. So and it was a serendipitous moment. The class happened right around the same time, within a matter of weeks, that I got a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. So we got the email as staff, please sign up for this health course. And it was a description. And I honestly, just to tell you my honest gut reaction, I wasn't that excited initially. I thought I was sort of already on the path of doing things for my health by going from vegetarian to vegan. And I thought I was doing that. And honestly, in that time, I had lost weight. I had gone from 264 pounds to 225 pounds. So even in that time from vegetarian to vegan, I had lost weight. So I thought I was doing everything I should.
But at the same time, you went from being pre-diabetic to type 2 diabetes, which is like, that's not going in a good path.
Exactly. So
yeah, you had to do something. So then here comes this class.
I wasn't too excited, but I was like, okay, well, let's try it. Let's listen, let's learn. And I signed up for the class, and then we were maybe a week into the class, and I went to get my blood work done. I'm like, okay, let's just get a sort of foundation with the doctor to see where I'm at today and what this class can do for me. And that was when I got my diagnosis. And the first thing I told my doctor, because I was in that class and because I was starting to get motivated for the things I was learning in that class, I told my doctor, I'll have you know this diagnosis is temporary for me. And she said, okay. And then from there, I told her my diet, what diet I was going to jump into with my whole heart and figure out how to make it work for me. And then the next 6 months were a whirlwind.
Part of you had to think that, oh, I can't believe I'm not going to eat another Oreo, or I'm not going to eat another, bit of, vegan or, acceptable junk food within a vegan or vegetarian diet. What was your reaction to how things began to change subtly in your behavior?
I've never really done anything subtly in my entire life. So I've just been a jump in heads first, figure it out how to make it work kind of person. And that's how we jumped into veganism too, just cleared out the pantry and went for it. And so it was the same with this diet. We cleaned out the pantry. We knew that abstinence was probably the best approach with things like Oreos. Like, don't have that stuff in the house. It's a slippery slope. And I had listened to the Physicians Committee podcast where they had an episode and Dr. Barnard said, no matter how strong you think your willpower is, you're not as strong as some of the chemicals that they put in the food that make them addicting. So you're not as strong as an Oreo. So just don't have it in the house. So we do see those kinds of things as slippery slopes in my house. So it's not so much as a missing an Oreo. It's this way of acceptance of this kind of food was killing me. And it's this other food that saves my life. So that's the food I'm going to jump in wholeheartedly for.
You just cleaned out your cupboard and said, that's it. And how hard was that? How easy was it?
It was easy. I think because there was the threat to my life with diabetes. And I think that I understood that threat. I understood the gravity of that threat to my life because of my family suffering from the same disease for years, especially my mom, who is suffering from type 2 diabetes for decades now. And just to see the way in which that's affected her quality of life, I knew that was the direction I was heading if I didn't make changes. So what's worth it? The 2-second of euphoric feeling you may get from putting an Oreo in your mouth, or the overall benefits of just loving an apple. And it's now that we've been eating this way for quite some time, it's changed. If I think of an Oreo, I don't have these nostalgic thoughts about it at all. But I do crave apples and fruits and whole foods.
The real hard pivot came when you saw it as a matter of life and death.
Yeah, definitely. When I could see my future in front of me and think about the people that I love who suffer, it is like watching a slow death in so many ways. You see their vision deteriorate or their mobility deteriorate. And then the longer someone's sedentary, even more mobility is lost. So it was a matter of life and death for me. And I do know that this class and PETA offering it to me saved my life entirely.
Also, some of your family members, did they come along the journey with you as well?
No, but I'll never give up. I think that this, by way of telling my story, is sort of a part of that too. Overcoming any kind of fear of public speaking or anything like that. That doesn't even come into play because my mission is to save someone else's life. Like you can to just save your own and then be like, okay, end of day. No, I work in animal rights for a reason. And humans are very much a part of that. It's so important for us to be healthy and have the mental clarity and focus we need every day. So
you mentioned your mom and other members of your family, and they haven't exactly followed you, but they must take some inspiration in seeing you transform yourself and transform your life. And at what point does that become motivation for them to say, I've got to join Stephanie?
It's happening gradually. To some of their credit, they're not always like a jump in heads first kind of person. Like I am more slow to change. So it is happening gradually though, which is great. There's little things here and there, little changes in the way of eating, little changes in maybe joining a gym or something like that they are making that are also inspiring to me. If you can say, oh, look at this lifestyle, look at all the health benefits of this lifestyle. Not only is it in my blood work numbers, but it's also, I ran a 10K. I'm training for a half marathon. I think when I completed my first 10K and I sent that selfie to my family, and the first reaction was, you don't even look tired. And and it was, I'm not. So
this is all due to the changes in your diet that have really energized your life and changed it.
yeah, absolutely. Once the way of eating was, once I figured that out and figured, getting enough fiber a day, getting 40 plus grams of fiber a day, staying within that 20 to 30 grams of total fat a day. Once I figured out that the maneuvering day to day through that sort of got through those guidelines of dieting, then it was that the health benefits of eating that way just started to show. I could run a little bit further the next week. I could lift heavier weights during strength training the next week, or I wasn't having the afternoon sleepies anymore. I used to get so tired in the afternoon. 3:00 would hit and I'm like, is it nap time yet? Is this just a part of getting older? Like what, is this something that's new for my age group or whatever? But it's not normal. It was a lot of that I attributed to my diet and my sedentary lifestyle just pulling me down. I wasn't getting the right nutrition I needed to keep my body going the rest of the day.
You were in these 4 or 6 classes that PETA was giving to the employees, and did the changes start immediately, or did they start after the course was done? Then you had to start cooking and arranging your diet. When did you start seeing the changes?
3 weeks in. And I know that definitively because when I got diagnosed with type 2, I wore a continuous glucose monitor, which told me where my blood glucose was at any point of the given, at any point during the day that I wanted to check it, or it was just always on monitor. So I knew it 3 weeks. So my blood sugar was averaging above 140 in a week. And then 3 weeks into the class, 3 weeks into the diet of eating low fat, whole food, vegan, my blood sugar stabilized and it went to an average of below 100, which is where it should be, which is normal. And I was floored when that happened. And I remember taking that to my glucose monitor was connected to my doctor. And I had a diabetic coach at the doctor's office. And I remember talking to her and showing her my screen. And it said, average glucose 99 for the week. And she said, "Wow, that's amazing. You're doing so well." She said, we normally tell people like you to shoot for 140. She said, "You're below 100. That's amazing." And I said, "This is whole food, low fat, vegan diet. This is why. And this is what I'm going to be for the rest of my life because I feel amazing. And all of the patients should be on this diet." So I bought my doctor a book of Dr. Barnard's Reversing Diabetes, and I shared it with her to read, but then to also share with her other patients.
Isn't this kind of amazing that you had to share this information with the doctor and that the doctor was kind of clueless?
Yeah, especially because my doctor had not been out of med school that long. A younger doctor. So her education would have been, pretty recent. To not have a general understanding of what our bodies need to function to be healthy is maybe a testament to our medical system. But yeah, it was kind of mind-blowing that I was the one providing the source material.
So must indicate to you how much power you have to tell your story to others, to her patients, to other people, to your family, to other people who were in your situation.
And the great thing I think about it is that I have the receipts. I don't look like the same person. So, there's been a major change there. And I don't also act like the same person. Being tired and sedentary all the time makes you act a certain way day to day. I don't have that anymore. I have lots more energy. So I bring a lot more energy to the table for the things that I'm involved in, which changes things and it changes the attitude of the people that I talk to. It's very powerful to have. It feels a lot like a whirlwind too, that there's been a lot of times where I've had to just take pauses and take a step back to think back about 5 years ago and think about my mindset then and how much growth and change is important and to always keep pushing myself. So I didn't just reach this where I'm at now. I have to keep going. So there has to be next levels to this.
Did you cook before, and was it fun to learn how to cook, in this new way to live?
Yeah, I really loved cooking when we went vegetarian to vegan, because when you eliminate animal fat from your kitchen, it changes things. There's a layer of fat residue that happens with animal fat in your kitchen that doesn't happen when it's gone. So there's that change. The smells change. The feelings in your body change. Everything changes. So, but then going from a vegan who ate lots of highly processed foods to where I'm at now, at whole food, the major cooking changes were the elimination of oil. I didn't even know you could cook without oil. I had always, every recipe, most recipes start with put a tablespoon of olive oil in the pan as you saute your vegetables. It's just not necessary. You don't need to do that. You don't need to add fat and what I like to call like empty calories, because you're just piling on the calories, but not really any benefit other than that, just more calories. And then piling on the fat. So raising your cholesterol, raising your waistline.
Tell me what your typical meals are: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what do you eat for breakfast?
Yeah, this morning like every morning I have oatmeal. I have organic steel cut oats and rolled oats, and just cook them in water on the stove. And I don't like to spend a ton of time cooking, so I just cook them on high for a minute or two and just stir, and then I eat them with like a serving and a half of blueberries. I really love blueberries. So, and I buy frozen fruit a lot of the time. I buy frozen blueberries. One of my favorite snacks is frozen cherries. And that's what I had for breakfast. And I believe I had a banana this morning too. I cut up the banana on top of my oatmeal. For lunch, I'll have lo mein, and that is just easy chopped like carrots, onion, bok choy, red peppers with a brown rice noodle. And then either eaten with just kimchi or like a sriracha spicy sauce over top of it. I'm not sure what's for dinner. Maybe for dinner tonight we'll have a potato leek soup. We've been into the soups with the the cold weather lately. At first, when I first started eating this way, I did count. I did count calories. And then in class, they gave us these tools and like rules of thumb so you didn't have to necessarily count each bit of fiber you were eating. There was a fiber calculator where they gave you the list of whole foods, and then each food had a point. So if you had like lentils, that was 5 points or so many points. And then if you got to a certain level of points, you knew you had hit your fiber total for the day. For counting fat, that was probably the most important, to stay in that 20 to 30 grams of fat, because type 2 diabetes starts when your cells are so gunked up with fat that insulin can't do its job. So that's insulin resistance. The one thing I got from class was that keeping low-fat diet is imperative to reversing lifestyle diseases like type 2.
How much fiber do you need?
40 grams plus of fiber a day. I think less than like 10% of the United States population gets that amount of fiber a day. So a lot of the commercial foods and foods that we eat normally just don't cut it for what our bodies need. And your body needs that fiber to carry out the toxins.
Vegans and vegetarians know protein is overrated, but what did you learn from the course about how much protein you actually need?
The funny thing is I never worried about protein and I never counted protein, and I never worried over adding extra protein into my diet. I learned in class, we're getting enough protein that you need daily in just the fruits and vegetables that you eat. Eat the whole food. That's what you need. And then the proof is in my blood work, right? Like my protein levels are normal. There's nothing that suggests in my health that I need to focus on protein. or that I'm protein starved.
There's protein in a potato. There's protein in lots of vegetables, and there's and if you just eat a normal course, you'll have all the protein you need. That there's no deficiency. And then if you throw in tofu and other things like sparingly fake meats because they're loaded with fat. Are you big fake meats?
I was, but I haven't had any faux meat since my diagnosis. That stuff has a lot of oil and it has a lot of fat in it. So it's a little bit above my rule of thumb that I learned from class. So like you're saying, there's protein in everything. There's fat in everything too. Lettuce has fat in it, which I didn't know that before. I didn't know there was fat in lettuce, but lettuce has a fat content. But the rule of thumb you learn is to stay, when you do eat a food, to stay at 3 grams of total fat per serving or less. If it has more than that, you probably shouldn't eat it, to stay in that total 20 to 30 grams of total fat a day. So the rule of thumb, so you don't have to sit there and count everything you eat. The rule of thumb is don't eat more than 3 grams of total fat per serving.
When you feel hungry in between meals, what do you do?
My go-to snack is an apple. I don't know if it's because we can get these very delicious orchard apples in the fall, so I just sort of cling to that flavor throughout the entire year, or if it's just my favorite fruit. But we always have apples on hand, and I have an apple if I'm hungry throughout the day. I also I'm not a big nut snacker. Nuts are really high in fat. But I do have that. I do keep nuts in the house. We keep raw peanuts that we roast ourselves in the oven. And I know that it's 6 peanuts is around 3 grams of total fat. So if I have peanuts, I'll stay in that range. I eat a lot of black beans, a lot of I even like chili beans. I like a lot of spicy food. So black beans are probably my go-to. I put black beans in a lot, but also I love lentils. I'm a big fan of the legume family.
So you look back at everything that's happened, that class you took on healthy eating, and I guess for other people that can happen too if they just pick up a book or they pick up more information, that it can change a life. It changed your life.
The Food for Life class is available for people to take, and I highly encourage you to take it. And I also highly encourage reading Reversing Diabetes by Dr. Barnard. That it also has recipes and meal plans inside of it. So that was really helpful for me in reinforcing the things I learned in class. It was important for me to not just be in the class, but be a doer around the class. Like, what did you learn today? Put that into action. What did you read today? Put that into action. And it was those steps in putting things into action that was what saved my life, was what changed everything for me. Obesity is it's this one thing that you live with constantly throughout the day, and you mostly think about how it affects you in society. How do people treat you differently, maybe, or how you avoid certain activities or certain things for yourself or for others because of the obesity. And then having a tool where I feel like the weight melted off of my frame. That this was not extremely hard work. It didn't feel grueling. I maintained a positive attitude the entire time that I was on this journey of reversing it took 6 months to reverse, which is a blip in time, it feels. So that's maybe why it feels like a whirlwind for me. But going from being in a world for years and years and years, most of my life, where I avoided things because of being obese, to a point where I'm ready to grab anything that I can and go head first to make positive changes in my life, in people's lives around me. I'm here for it. I'm here for it because my life was saved. Because I was able to make that reversal from headed towards death to headed towards life. It's really that simple.
Stephanie Getchie, a PETA employee who took a class offered at PETA on eating right, and it worked. And you can do it too. Go to PETA.org for more information. And we'll keep following up with Stephanie to make sure she stays on track. Her next milestone, a half marathon, something she'd never consider 150 or so pounds ago. And that's our show for today. Thank you for listening. We're into Season 8. Don't forget to send a link of this show to your friends. Tell them you like the PETA Podcast. Contact us at PETA.org. You can contact me at amok.com or see this podcast on YouTube at emilamok1. Once again, thank you for listening. Check out all our episodes on your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts, where you can subscribe to, as well as rate and review the show. It helps get the word out about the issues you care about. And incidentally, if you're in New York and in the Lower East Side at Theater for the New City, a new play by Ishmael Reed, The Shine Challenge 2025, I have a small role. I play the bad guy. I play J. Bruce Ismay, the owner of the Titanic, and the play is, oddly, an animal rights play, or at least has an animal rights theme. It's a perfect play for Black History Month. You'll have to see the play to understand that. But what other play right now on Broadway, or excuse me, off Broadway, features a shark and a polar bear and an iceberg? Anyway, it's The Shine Challenge 2025 by Ishmael Reed, a new play at Theater for the New City. I have a small part. Go catch it if you can through February 16th. Our music normally is provided by CarbonWorks, but since we're traveling, we didn't take the orchestra with us. Anyway, you can check out CarbonWorks on YouTube. And join us again next time for more insight into animal rights and the fight for a cruelty-free world on the PETA Podcast. I'm Emil Guillermo.